Is there any way to kind of address this? Is there anything that we could do as people to bring awareness to this? Is there any way there could be some kind of peace here?
Well, the trend lines are coming in my direction when it comes to public perception on this. I mean, initially, like the American people were dying to send every American dollar, to Ukraine, and increasingly, at least within the Republican Party, you've started to see that shift as our economic conditions are more in the forefront of people's minds. Like, we have laws that require end-to-end monitoring of materiel when we send it into a war zone, and I am not convinced we are following them.
Is it because we're not technically at war? The United States hasn't been technically at a war since World War II.
Well, we do have regs that define a conflict zone, and whenever we send stuff that kills into one of those places, we're supposed to know who has it, and we don't. And that is concerning to me. If that's like the new thing is like, oh, well, send the stuff, anything, what was it that Ben Sass said when he was in the Senate? If it shoots, send it. And so we've been doing all of that. And I think that in some ways prolongs conflict. It doesn't bring us to a faster resolution to continue to pour cash and weapons into a historically corrupt country that is fighting.
Yeah, Dave Smith would say and has said, if you want to see who our next big enemy is going to be, look at who we're funding right now. And I'm concerned that the Nazis, I don't know if they're technically, are they considered Nazis? Let's be, what is it?
Well, Democrats thought so. I mean, you had dozens of Democrats signing letters saying that the Azov battalion were a bunch of white supremacists. And while they want to call our own military, who are patriots, a bunch of white supremacists here, they got no problem draining the resources of our country to go and fund who they were just calling white supremacists, 18 months ago.
So if in 6 years the Azov start exterminating a race because they happen to be genocidal or racist, then what is the American, you're going to use that as evidence to go to war in Ukraine to fight the Azov, and now we got more military bases in Ukraine protecting the Suez Canal?
Yep.
Well, there's a lot of intel reports of a lot of advanced U.S. military hardware being sold on the black markets as well. And a lot of the weapons, even according to CBS News and AID, not making it to its official destination. And I think that's such a travesty because there's so much human suffering in that country. There's so many people used as pawns. There's so many people hurt with this larger conflict. There's such a bigger immigration crisis here. How do you see all of this going? Because you have a lot of, you're in Congress. You talk to a lot of people there. How do you see this kind of unfolding here with this never-ending war? Where are we going to be a couple years from now with this continuing the way it is?
What worries me is you cannot overstate the gravity of some of the worst potential outcome sets here. I mean, Russia, much like a Bond villain, sort of becomes more and more dangerous during its demise. It's a kleptocracy in a lot of ways. I mean, a lot of people have gotten out of Russia with whatever they could steal on their way out, right? To your point about the materiel and the black market. And so I think that for us to go and play a game of nuclear chicken over which guy in a tracksuit gets to run Crimea is foolish. And it's not how a serious country ought to behave.
You think World War III could result from recklessness?
Of course. Of course. This is a tinderbox. And it's not Syria, right? It's Russia and Ukraine. It is a country that has enough nuclear power to end Earth multiple times over. And it's a leader who I don't think is making stable, rational decisions in Vladimir Putin. And, to continue to send the HIMARS there, to send the Bradleys there from the United States seems provocative to me. Now, why isn't this Europe's problem, right? You would think that Germany and the other powers in Europe would have the most at stake. But what they do, as these European democracies face elections and as their reserves go down, you're going to see them have a different posture towards Russia as their mandates expire and as they have to go back for elections.
Plus, they rely on us for defense.
Right. Well, I mean, that was one of the principal critiques that Trump made that I think got a lot of disaffected people to support him is when he said, I'm just tired of being dead money at the world stage. Being the world's policeman, being the world's piggy bank has not been good for the American middle class.
Yeah, Trump also made sure that he sent lethal weapons to Ukraine, something Obama was even afraid to do. So, I mean, this conflict has been brewing for so long, since 2014, even before that with their kind of revolution that's happening there. But it's to me, this is just such a sad thing to see humanity go through. I don't know. I just hope this kind of ends somehow. I don't think it is. I don't know if we should potentially even change topics.
What do you think when you see your leaders in Congress where the like American flag, Ukraine flag like pin around.
Wasn't McCarthy doing that?
Yep.
I think so.
I saw a photo. I didn't know if it was real or not.
It seems like they don't understand that Russia needs a warm water or wants a warm water port into the Black Sea. Like if that was understood, and it's like, yo, this is about trade. This is about Russia.
Yeah, you think it's just a real estate play?
Yeah,
at the
I
end
think
of the
he
day.
takes that.
Energy, Gazprom, natural gas, etc.
It's real estate. Yeah, I think it is 100% real estate. And I don't know why there's not more American English media of Putin talking.
Well, real estate, but energy, right? So
Yeah, transportation of oil,
Gazprom controls a
transportation.
large portion of the natural gas from Russia into Europe. The Western powers
Direct
want to
access
control
to
it.
the Suez Canal, which is all
Right.
of the Indian Ocean and things like that.
Put some weights on Russia. Russia doesn't like it. Russia says we're going to go and take the port back. War.
So that's what I think is that they're missing it. That they just don't. That they're emotionally blockade. Their perception is being blockaded by emotions because it's always horrible to see someone get killed or to see a house get blown up or invasion or any of that. It's horrible, you know.
I'm against war. You know, I mean, I think that it's one of the reasons why I'm a little more dovish in my views. I think oftentimes both sides lose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder if, like, the World Economic Forum, Davos group types have substantial influence when it comes to the wars we declare.
Have you been
Well,
asked?
yeah. Why, is that an open question in your mind?
No, I think they do. Like,
Of course.
What I mean is, to what degree, right? Because obviously the goals they have, the actions we take align with them. So it's like the U.S. has no reason to be involved in Ukraine. Like you said, it's Europe's problem. Yet for some reason, we're acting like one body.
Yeah, we're the military arm of the liberal economic order, the British Empire, basically.
Have you been asked?
That turned out well.
Yeah.
Have you been asked to be a part of the World Economic Forum?
I have
And
not.
what kind of influence do you think they kind of have on the United States, since Klaus Schwab openly brags about how he has half of the Canadian Parliament being young members of the World Economic Forum?
Yeah, no, I think that it's part of the like political industrial complex. It's the finance wing of the political industrial complex. And so like if what you need to keep your power and to win your elections is a super PAC that shows up with, $10 million in dark money, like who do you think cuts those checks? You think it's like some guy who's like a furniture tycoon in Oklahoma? It's not.
Bank for International Settlements.
And everybody
in
knows
Switzerland.
it. And everybody knows. And this is an area where the populist right and the populist left need to work together on the way that we fund campaigns in this country, because it always works to the benefit of the uniparty. And I don't get why people should be able to put unlimited money without disclosure into manipulating the viewpoints of Americans.
Do you think politically there's going to be some kind of rift and change here? Because there does seem to be, obviously, the Democrats and the Republicans, but there also seems to be a bigger rift amongst the establishment and the anti-establishment.
Totally.
There's a lot of populists. There's also a lot of statists. There's a lot of rhinos. There's a lot of neocons. It's like a civil war within a civil war within a civil war, politically speaking, not violently speaking. Do you see the political landscape changing in the future? Because I think a lot of people are sick of these neocons, of these kind of rhinos, and they don't really represent the American people. We had enough of George W. Bush. He had his time. He ruined that time, and I think he spurred a situation where now the Democrats have a lot of power.
When I first got elected to Congress, we could have a lot of collaboration between the populist right and the populist left on things like war powers, the surveillance state, political reforms that don't just empower kind of the PAC structure. And then January 6th happened. And those populist leftists would not talk to us. I mean, would not collaborate with us on bills, would not engage in any way. And it became such a point of personal trauma for some of them. And I don't think that was good for the country. I don't think that was good for kind of the anti-establishment unity that we need. I will say that since Republicans took the majority, they've been a lot nicer to us.
Dude, but
We saw you talking with AOC during this whole process.
Right.
Was that something relevant or that you can share?
Sure. I mean, I got caught on camera in conversations with AOC, Ilhan Omar, and Pramila Jayapal, three people who folks have seen me disagree with more than agree with. With AOC, I was discussing whether or not the Democrats were going to leave the floor and cut a deal with McCarthy, because that would have changed the math on the speaker vote. And so she was actually doing everything possible to make sure that they didn't, and that there were 212 Democrats voting for Jeffries on every ballot.
Wow.
With Jayapal, we've worked together on legislation to break up big tech. And I was talking to her about the prospects in a Republican Congress and a Republican House of getting some bipartisan, bicameral solutions to reshape a lot of these companies. And the Geopolitical legislation from the 117th Congress was not, taking immunities away and all that. It said, no, Meta has to alienate their Instagram asset. Google has to alienate email from search, and literally breaking up these companies. And then with Omar, we were actually talking about war powers. And
wow,
I was teasing her a bit. I was like, you guys showed up here and said the military was racist. And before you were done being in the majority, you were voting for NATO. What went on there? And so I was teasing her a bit.
Well, what did go on there? Hypocrisy? Tribalism?
I think that they got drafted into that establishment Democrat thinking.
Yeah.
I don't think that the squad really believes that NATO is advancing the interests of their constituents on a day in, day out basis, but yet they were still willing to vote for all these NATO strengthening endeavors.
Go ahead.
Are there some issues that could bridge the kind of populist left and the populist right together? Are there some things that we could actually agree upon that could bring this country back together? The first thing that comes to mind personally is the Epstein scandal. I think everyone on the left and right agrees on that. But are there some issues that you think you guys could work together?
How about abolishing FISA? Right? I mean, why wouldn't the populist right and populist left agree to take down some elements of the surveillance state?
Yeah,
absolutely. Another idea would be cleaning up the environment, the atmosphere, pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. You can convert it into graphene.
Here we go. Everyone drink.
Directly.
I'm all about the carbon capture stuff. And also, this is a part of the libertarian thing that I don't get. Why would we, as Americans, give carte blanche to a bunch of powerful businesses to pollute our air and our water? To me, America first means that you actually have to want this to be a beautiful place. And so I do think that making sure that we don't completely sell out to people to trash our nation, would be important.
Regarding using the government to protect us from corporations, you were talking about breaking up big tech earlier.
Yeah.
I think a mistake that we should not make is what they did to Rockefeller with his Standard Oil. They broke it up into 7 or 8 oil companies, and then he made more money off of these new. So breaking up Facebook into Facebook Prime, Facebook Messenger, Instagram as different companies, Mark would still have the code. He'd still be able to run software like that. So I'm thinking we need to make them free their software code so that other people can spin up versions of those websites, interlock them. My version of Facebook can interoperate with Mark Zuckerberg's version. And that
decentralization, I think.
The interoperability of data is really what you're talking about.
Force the companies, and it's sort of like breaking up monopoly, but we're not actually breaking the company apart.
But where I disagree is giving your proprietary code up is basically it's your ownership of your intellectual property, but releasing the algorithmic code, how they manipulate the public with algorithms, I think is extremely important.
I think that's the path for big tech, to heal the system with big tech, as opposed to just try and smash up companies and make them do what the government says they have to do. Let them ban whoever they want. But if they have bad terms of service and your version of the site has better terms of service, they're going to lose users.
Well, go ahead.
No, I got a different question. So.
No, I don't know about you, but I think big tech had a huge influence in this latest midterm election. I think they're also essentially controlling what a lot of people see and think with their algorithms. They're becoming a huge, powerful entity that, of course, also now we're finding out through the Twitter files work for the private intelligence agencies. That curation, that ability to control what people see and listen to, that's a huge power. I personally think it had an effect on the election, and I think it's going to continue to have bigger effects on the election, especially in places that took a lot of the Zuckerbucks. Florida was one of the states that refused money from Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, and their elections went totally different than a lot of states that did. Is there a solution to this? Is there a way to kind of rein in these intelligence agencies that are controlling big tech, that are essentially asserting their will on everyone else?
I think that on the election front, the specific algorithmic work to target certain types of voters, to push registration, to push vote by mail, to push early voting, to do election day awareness, that is partisan based on who they are trying to target those messages to, right? And that should be transparent. And if it was transparent, I actually think the right enforcement tool is the Federal Elections Commission, because when Facebook says, okay, well, we're going to target this exact population of people with this age range and this zip code, that is a donation to a political party and a political movement, and should be subject to the same caps that any other American would be subject to.
I got a question for the audience. DeSantis Gaetz 2024?
I'm for Trump.
You're for Trump?
Yeah, I'm for Trump. I think the world of DeSantis.
Trump Gaetz 2024.
Well, I would do anything the president asked, but I think he's got better choices. I like what I'm doing now. I was very involved in DeSantis' first campaign. I was his transition chairman when he came into the governorship in Florida. I helped him hire a lot of the folks that shape the policy that make Florida the envy of the country right now. I think Ron DeSantis will be president one day, but in 2024, it's my hope and expectation will be Donald Trump.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.